Picture this. A 21-year-old steps onto grass that once broke her. And this time, she doesn't just survive it, she owns it. And by the time she walks off, an entire section of the most exclusive tennis venue on the planet is chanting her name in a language the commentators don't even recognize. That happened yesterday. Alex EALA took apart Renata Zarazua in straight sets, 6-1, 6-2, and turned court 12 at Wimbledon into something that looked less like a grand slam and more like a homecoming parade. But if you only watched that match, you missed the real story, because exactly 1 year earlier, on this exact surface, this exact player walked off a court completely broken by a name you're about to hear a lot more of, Maya Joint. And today, the tennis draw did something almost too poetic to be real. It put them back in the same tournament, the same round, the same stage where it all went wrong. Except the woman walking in this time isn't the one who walked out that day in tears. So, how did we get here? How does a player go from being dismantled on the surface she was supposed to dominate to absolutely owning that same surface 12 months later? Stick around, because this comeback is bigger than a scoreline. It's about a young woman who almost let one match convince her she didn't belong, and then decided she wasn't going to let that be the ending. Rewind with me to last July. Eastbourne, the final. EALA had just done something no Filipina had ever done before her. She'd fought her way into a WTA final on grass, her surface, her moment. And then Maya Joint walked in and took it apart piece by piece, 6-4, 1-6, 6-2. Not a nail-biter. Not a 2 hours in the sun kind of loss. A dismantling. To understand why that hurts so much, you need to know what EALA had already pulled off just months before. In March of that year, this teenager walked into the Miami Open as a wild card, one of the biggest tournaments on the entire calendar, and instead of making up the numbers, she knocked out Madison Keys, ranked 5th in the world, and then turned around and beat Iga Swiatek, the world number 2, back-to-back. Nobody saw that coming. She became the first Filipina to ever reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, the first to ever crack the top 100. Eastbourne was supposed to be the moment where the tennis world stopped calling it a fluke and started calling it a career. Instead, Joint took the pen out of her hand and rewrote the story herself. And here's the part people don't talk about enough. A loss like that isn't just a line in a record book when you're 20 years old and carrying an entire country's expectations on your shoulders. It plants a question, quietly, in the back of your head, one that doesn't go away just because the tournament ends. What if she was right? What if the wins in Miami were a fluke? What if grass was never really mine? That question followed EALA for the next year, and it showed. What came after Eastbourne wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was something slower and sneakier, the kind of erosion that eats away at confidence one match at a time. She headed back to clay, her supposed backup surface, and it turned ugly fast. A clean loss to Leylah Fernandez in Stuttgart. A one-sided defeat to Elise Mertens in Madrid. A match she had in her grasp against a qualifier in Strasbourg that somehow slipped away. Then Roland Garros, the biggest clay stage in the world, where after a bye she ran into her close friend Iva Jovic in the second round and lost in straight sets. None of these were isolated bad days. They were a pattern, and the pattern had a name: doubt. In the Philippines, tennis has never been the biggest sport, but EALA had become bigger than the sport itself. She was everywhere: television, social media, front-page news, and every loss widened the gap between what people expected of her and what she was delivering on court. Then came the moment that really turned the volume up on the whispers. 1 week before Wimbledon, at Bad Homburg, the last tune-up before the tournament that mattered most, EALA lost in the first round on grass, her best surface, to the same Elise Mertens who'd already beaten her on clay. She'd even been training alongside Venus Williams trying to sharpen her game, and it still wasn't enough to close it out. That's when the question stopped being quiet. Analysts started openly wondering if a seeded EALA was actually ready for Wimbledon. Filipino media went into overdrive. The pressure wasn't just about her career anymore. It had become about proving that the Philippines belonged on this stage at all, about proving Miami wasn't a happy accident and that the real Alex EALA wasn't the one who folded at Eastbourne. She had exactly 1 week to answer all of that before walking into the most famous tennis tournament on earth. And then, almost out of nowhere, something shifted. Birmingham, early June. EALA didn't just show up hoping to survive. She found something buried underneath all that noise and doubt, and she started trusting it again. She won the title outright, beating Nikola Bardunkova in a final that saw her fall behind 2-5 in the second set, the kind of hole most players don't climb out of. She clawed her way back anyway. That win cracked the door open, but it wasn't the real turning point. Not yet. That came a week later in Berlin at a WTA 500 event, where after handling Donna Vekic cleanly in round 1, she walked into round 2 against Elena Rybakina, the world number 2, one of the most fearsome hitters in the sport, the kind of opponent who's supposed to end runs like this before they really begin. EALA beat her 7-5, 6-4. Read that again because it matters. She didn't scrape by. She outmaneuvered one of the best players alive, found the angles, controlled the tempo, made Rybakina uncomfortable, and won. That result changed the entire conversation around her, because now there was proof instead of hope. This wasn't a one-time miracle in Miami. This was a pattern repeating itself on a completely different surface. Days later, she beat world number 7 Elena in straight sets 2, 6-3, 6-4. Back-to-back statement wins against players closer to your level before the tests get harder, and psychologically, you get something even more valuable. The knowledge that the sport itself now believes you're one of the players worth protecting. After a year of spiraling doubt, that kind of external belief becomes oxygen. By the time